Check, check, 1, 2, I got something for you. Hey, it's your boy Zydash. In a year or two, you will be joining the party of cash. You know, I personally feel that there should be more quick raps at the beginning of my videos, but that's just me. If you think so, just do exactly what this brilliant young brother did and come up with a quick rhyme and post it in the comment section, and I'll probably make a rap out of it in the next video. Nevertheless, today's tutorial is unanimously Nico. Cough cough. So it should be a banger of a thumbnail as long as you follow exactly what I tell you. Starting now. Like the video, subscribe for more tutorials, trigger that bell, and follow me on Twitter. And now just kick back, relax, and enjoy the footage. Senpai out. You can see that I already have 3 NPCs. We are on a Bed Wars map that I used the world downloader map to download, so I can save a world, which is a Bed Wars map, and then edit it. And this is really great when it comes to using thumbnails. As always, the link to the download for the world downloader mod will be in the description, because it is very helpful. So I got my 3 NPCs as well, and what I've done is just put them down, given them armor, given them each red wool, and I've built out like about 7 blocks and given each of them 3 individual bridges. So just for example, we're gonna go on this one, and I'm gonna show you guys what I did. As always, you want to hide the name. I gave him a custom name, so you set it to player and then just type it any name that you like. We're gonna go to the tab that says AI, go all the way down to movement, and we're gonna set it to manual. Now don't copy down the degrees that I have right here. It ranges from 0 to 359, like a full 360 degree circle. So it just depends on which way north is in your world. Depending on that, that's how you adjust your NPC. Alright, so let's go to advanced. The puppet, as always, you gotta adjust the head, body, the arms, everything. Just worry about the X coordinates for all of them. So that's just for an example. If you've seen my previous tutorials, I would always walk through how to adjust the NPCs for the thumbnail. So we're gonna hit F1 and take a screenshot. By the way, the texture pack I'm using is one that I use for leisure, which is the Lively Faithful, because I cannot find the texture pack that he uses. So we're gonna move in a little, and I'm trying to get it as close to how he screenshotted it for his thumbnail, or however his thumbnail maker screenshotted it. F1 is hit, and we're going to hit F2 once we get the right angle. So I'm gonna do that right now. And as always, take multiple ones just to make sure if you mess up on the first one that you still have a backup and whatnot. So now we don't need Minecraft anymore. We're done. We're gonna head into Photoshop, and we're gonna go to File. We're gonna make an entirely new file, and we're just gonna call it whatever we want. So I'm going to call it Tutorial 19. Now I got a preset that's set to 1920 by 1080, which is full HD, but you can do 1280 by 720 pixels if you like. So now we're just going to go and drag in our screenshot that we just took, go all the way down to the most recent one. We're going to drag and drop it, and always feel free to adjust it if it's too small. So I'm going to drag it to one corner. You don't need to hold shift because we're going to make it full up the whole screen anyway, and it automatically locks in place depending on which editing software we're using. I'm actually going to zoom out and make it a little bigger, and hit enter, and done. And we can always readjust it if we need to later on when we're done with everything else. Okay, so now what we're going to do is trace out or cut out these guys individually. So we're going to have to use the pen tool, or you can also use the polygon lasso tool, but I'm going to use the pen tool because it's easier to see what you're cutting out. Now we're going to rasterize the layer, just click that, and what that does is allows you to edit the file any way you want. So we're gonna hold Alt, scroll up, zoom in, I'm going to start by tracing out this guy, and then we're going to trace out this guy, and then so on and so forth. And guys, always remember to take your time during this process. There's just no need to rush. Thumbnails take time. Alright, so, and always try to zoom in as much as you can to get in all the edges. Even though this is Minecraft, which makes it easier for you to trace out, it's always good to maintain all the sharp edges that we have in Minecraft. Alright, we are done with the first two. So now what I'm going to do is right click the area that is inside the selection. We're going to make the selection, set the feather radius 1.5 or whatever you want to set it to. And we're going to hit Control C and Control V to paste it down. Now sometimes when you repaste it, it always likes to move up just slightly, but that's okay. Just try to line it right back up. I'm not sure why Photoshop does that, but I've been trying to find a solution, but I've had no dice. So anyway, we're going to go on to the third guy right now and just do the same process. Alright, last one. Make the selection again, so the feather radius. I'm going to Control C to copy and paste it right back down. Alright, now this time it decided to paste in the same place, or the exact location that I wanted it to place, which is good. Okay, now we're going to add the effects to it so that it stands out, which was the whole purpose of cutting them out. So first off, let's start off with the first one that we did. Now we're going to give it a stroke, a white stroke, and adjust the size accordingly. I think 10 is good for now. And we're going to give it a drop shadow. Now I'm just going to make another drop shadow because this actually has a custom drop shadow that I wanted, and I don't want to lose that, which we're going to use later, by the way. So I'm going to set this back to black as any drop shadow should be, and we're going to the distance, increase that, increase the size, lower the spread, increase the distance just a little bit, and just copy down everything that you see. Lastly, we're going to hit the inner glow, give it the inner glow. I have the blend mode set to overlay, and we're just going to reduce the size just a little bit, and that looks pretty good. So we're going to go ahead and hit OK for that. Now let us just right click the layer that we've just edited. We're going to go down, copy layer style, and then we're going to select this one, hold Control, and select this one so that both of them are selected. We're going to right click, paste layer style, and now all the effects have been pasted to the remaining cutouts that we made just now. Now we're not done. The next and final thing we're going to do is add a motion blur behind them. So in order to do that, we're going to select all of these by holding shift and selecting the top and bottom one. Hit Control G, and that'll make a group. And now we're going to do one more thing. We're going to hit Control J and duplicate the group. Now the next thing we're going to do is go all the way over here to the filter, and we're just going to give it the motion blur that we want. But first, let us deselect all the effects because we don't want the effects to be part of the blur. And then hold shift, select all of them, and hit Control E to combine the layers. Now we can go to filter, blur, motion blur, select that, and just increase the distance, something very high. I think this is good. 150. It doesn't need to be anything specific, and you can always see the preview of it so that you get a general idea here. It's actually a little too much. I still want to see the players just a little bit, but we can always adjust it later on. So now the last thing we're going to do with this motion blurred effect is move it by holding shift, make sure the move tool is selected and use the arrow keys and click the right arrow key. Move it left or right, adjust it, and now that gives it a sense of motion that these guys are building pretty fast, and that's how you interpret it. Now, what I'm gonna do is select this, the whole thing, the entire project, and I'm gonna move it down because I noticed that the inner glow was kind of like visible here because of the way that we cut it out, so I don't want it to be seen like that. So I just did that just because, but you know, just a little minor thing. Now let's go ahead and add the Gaussian blur to the background itself. So go back to filter, go back to blur. This time we're gonna add a Gaussian blur. Gaussian blur, just set it low. Doesn't need to be that much or intense. The radius can be set to something around 2. Yeah, 2.5 is looking alright. Now we can hit OK, and you're done with that. Alright, now this next step is going to be a little more or less complicated, but we've done something like this before. We're going to add an arrow, so I just got a random red arrow here that I got from online. And, you know, just a regular arrow, nothing simple. You can find it on Google. And what I'm going to do is actually make all of these layers invisible real quick so that, you know, to avoid any confusion. So we're going to add a gloss effect to this arrow. So the first thing we're going to do is change the color of the arrow. So we're going to go over to the fill, the paint bucket icon, and we're going to right click the arrow. We're going to rasterize the layer so that we can actually edit it. And now we're going to select this white right here, click it, and now it is white. Boom, easy, right? Okay, now the next thing we're going to do is add a gradient. We're going to add 2 gradients. The first one is going to be on the top part with the actual point of the arrow, and the next one is going to be around the middle of the arrow. So we're going to hold and click the paint bucket where the paint bucket is and change it to the gradient tool. Now up here, the gradient is set to this one, which comes with Photoshop. It is called neutral density. So we're going to hold shift, click somewhere outside this box. Don't forget to create a new layer, by the way, and make sure you add the gradient in the selected area. Adding a new layer is crucial. All right, we're gonna hold shift and I'm just gonna drag. And it's okay if you mess up the first time because you can hit Control Z or delete and do it again. All right, I think I'm going to do it one more time until I'm satisfied. I think this is just a little bit more. All right, not bad, not bad. And now we're going to right click the layer that has the gradient and we're going to create a clipping mask. So now it only applies to the layer that is directly underneath it, which in this case is the red arrow. Now we're going to do that again. So we're going to select this area. Notice how it keeps the gradient intact even though it was deselected. And we're going to select that area. We're going to go back here to the gradient tool, hold shift, and we're going to drag down again. All right, and one more thing, we're going to double click the red arrow and we're going to simply give it an inner glow. Nice inner glow, just the size. And we're going to give it a drop shadow. Drop shadow that I was referring to just a little while ago. All right, so I'm gonna actually make a third drop shadow because this is what we're going to use. Just stay tuned. All right, so now first drop shadow, let's set this back to black, and we're going to adjust the spread or the size. The distance is okay, and just hit OK. Okay, now we are going to select both of these layers. I'm just gonna duplicate them just in case we mess up and bring them all the way down here. All right, so this is just in case, so don't worry about these. And now I'm going to select both of these, the original ones, hit Control E to combine them, and now hit Control T. We're going to adjust this so we can actually make everything else visible right now for a reference point. And now we're going to hit Control T, right click the selection, and we're going to change it to perspective. All right, now we're going to put this arrow over here, but of course we can't just simply rotate it and call it a day. We need to add some perspective so that it goes in line with the perspective of the bridge. So we're going to select these two corners and do this. And I can't really say what to do because this is, you gotta play around with this a little bit. So just play around with these corners right here. These two corners are what you really want to focus on. And always go back to Control T and rotate it. And just shrink the size a little. Gonna rotate it a little bit. All right, we're getting there. We're getting there. Just need to make a few more adjustments. So go back to perspective again. And it's just a back and forth thing with the perspective. Alright, so after a couple of minutes of finagling with the perspective and the free transform back and forth, this is what I came up with. It's a little bit skinnier than how it is in his thumbnail, but hey, this is the closest we could get. At least it looks like, you know, it's in line with the perspective of the bridge, which was what we were trying to go for. So now we're going to double click the arrow. We're going to give it a drop shadow. I'm just going to give it this drop shadow. Alright, and everything seems good. Let's just reduce the distance a little, as well as the size. Alright, and now we're just going to create this other one that we had, the other drop shadow, and set the blend mode to normal, increase the distance, reduce the size, and boom, just like that. Now we got the double drop shadow, making it have that three-dimensional effect. No, not just a three-dimensional effect, a double three-dimensional effect. Let's go. It looks like it got rid of my inner glow when I did the free transform and the perspective, but that's okay because we can just do it like this. And I think for this I'll set it to normal so that it penetrates through, and adjust the size. Alright, no biggie. Okay, so now we're done with the arrow. That was a long process, but if you made it through, just leave a like right now. Alright, now we're going to do the text, and we're winding down with the thumbnail. We're almost done. So what I got here is a custom starburst effect that I made to resemble the one that he had in this thumbnail. And what I did was downloaded a random starburst from Google, and then I just changed the colors of the top half to a nice marine sea blue and a lime green for the bottom half of the gradient. And then I took the eraser tool, set the hardness to 0, and just drew a circle around it so that it would have that nice feather effect. It's the cheap, practical way of doing it, but hey, I got the job done, and that's all that matters. So we're gonna put it here, and put it here, and we're just gonna add the text in front of it. So select the text tool, now we're gonna type Breezily, and then Bridgers. Make sure you spell everything correctly, by the way. And now we're gonna change the font real quick. The first one is called Chunk, which the link will be in the description down below. So hit the check mark after you select the right font. And now we're going to do the same for Bridgers. So the second font for Bridgers is called Questria, if I'm not mistaken. Questrian, I was close. And we're going to select that and hit the check mark for that as well. Now let's just adjust the size for both of these babies. So select both of them, hit Control T, hold Shift and Alt, and make them a little bit smaller. Now we're just going to line them all up so that they're centered with each other. Gonna have to adjust the size for Bridgers. Alright, there we go. Now what we are going to do is give them some effects because they're looking bland right now. So we're going to do Bridgers first because that'll be the simpler one. So first of all, we're going to give it a gradient. And I already got a custom gradient right here, which is a yellow to a nice lime green. Don't worry about the angle. I just had that from the arrows settings. And the opacity, 100% of course. And now we are going to give it a stroke. Let's give it this stroke. Obviously we got to change color to a better looking green. So let's just adjust the size first. Change color. Let's take this green. And then just drag the color down. Alright, there we go. Reduce the size a little bit. And the next thing we're going to do is give it the double drop shadow once again. So let's select this drop shadow, change the distance, increase the size, and then let's give it a second drop shadow, add more distance, increase the size, and obviously we're going to change color because this is looking horrible. So let's go over here to the color, and we're just going to select this one. This color right here, please. There we go. And make it a little brighter. Just in between the brights and the darks. And there we go. Let me just adjust the size a little bit more. Okay. Hit OK once you're done. Now let's go to Breezely. Breezely, you pain in the rear. So we're gonna have to give it a gloss effect. I know, but trust me, it'll be fine. It'll be quick. Alright, so as always, go over to the selection tool and drag over like about halfway between the top and the bottom of the font. We're gonna make sure we create a new layer. And we're going to go back to the gradient tool. Make sure it's still selected to the original one. Hold Shift, drag from anywhere, from top to bottom. And just keep trying until you get it just right. It's trial and error. Okay, I think that's good. Now we're going to right click the layer that we did the gradient on, create a clipping mask, and deselect, and boom, we are done. Now let us add a beautiful inner glow. This is optional. I don't think he used it in his, but I'm going to because it looks nice. And we are going to go down. Also give it that nice drop shadow. This drop shadow as well. But in this case, we're going to change the color to a bright blue. So let's choose this bright blue. Make the color a little bit darker. Actually, I think this is fine. Yeah, that looks good. All right, now let's make some adjustments. Let's change the distance because it's looking a little weird. Let's do the same for this one. Reduce the distance a little bit. How about increase the size? Maybe not. Yeah, reduce the size actually. More distance. We also try changing the angle. Nah, that would change the angle for everything. Alright, so just leave the angle at 90. Hit OK, and yeah, this is the font, guys. See, that wasn't too bad, was it? Okay, so now I'm just gonna group everything to make it easier. So we're gonna select all the font, Control G. So now we don't need to keep selecting all of them. Hit Control T. Now we're gonna move everything. You see, now we're running into a little boo-boo because now this is a little too much to the left. So we're gonna have to do something about that. Well, let me just adjust this, reduce the size a little bit because it's a little too big. Move it over here, hit enter, boom. And let us go ahead and adjust the starburst. Hit Control T. Now the good thing about the starburst is that it really doesn't matter how you move it, so you don't need to hold shift or whatever. Just adjust it so that you can see it and it looks nice. Alright, now that I did that, I just made it into a little bit of more oval shape. That's literally all I did. And now we're good. So we're basically done. But like I said, we just need to move this over. So I'm just gonna try moving this over, making that tiny adjustment, and I'll get back to you guys in a sec. Alright, and then just increase the size, move it over. And actually adjusting that was pretty simple. Now let's just readjust the font, move it down, make it a little smaller, and boom. And guys, congratulations, you've just made a thumbnail just like Nico, and I'm pretty satisfied with it. So if you guys want to see more tutorials like these, make sure you leave a like and leave an extra like and subscribe, because so many people have been telling me to make thumbnails like Nico that it has been absolutely insane. So I was like, you know what, I like his style. Well, I say that for every thumbnail maker or YouTuber that I do, but you guys get the point. I really enjoy doing this. Thank you. If this is your first time on the channel, I remind you to hit that subscribe button and help us get to 2,000 subscribers in the making. So guys, I'll check you guys later in the next tutorial video. Have an awesome day and peace out. Silly me, I forgot to add the brightness and contrast. Let's set the contrast to 40. Set the brightness to 15. No, actually 10. There we go.